is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer live on a Friday in December, coming to you a couple days later than expected because I was battling an illness, perhaps one that was not unlike the one that Lamar Jackson was battling last week. Right now, he's battling a back contusion, and on this podcast, we are going to talk about the state of Lamar Jackson's back. We're also going to talk about what has been an incredibly busy week for head coach John Harbaugh and his quarterback Lamar Jackson. Talk about all of the discussions, rumors, talk circulating the quarterback and head coach. And of course, we will preview Saturday night's matchup between the Ravens and Packers. All that and much, much more. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. All right, Jonas, we are live here on this Friday. If you are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or X, drop a comment, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, write us a 5-star review if you're listening to us after the fact on any of your favorite podcast platforms, and I will read it out here on the show. I was sick on Wednesday. I know I promised an episode on Wednesday, but just could not do it. It's like when Jonas got sick a few weeks ago and I had to tell him to stay home. I had to take my own advice, take the day off, and now I am back feeling a lot better. We had Christmas in the meantime. Merry Christmas, Jonas. You've got your lovely Santa hat for those who are watching live. I'm not a big... In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a movie in theaters on Christmas. You saw Marty Supreme yesterday. How did that go?
It was good. It's become a bit of a family tradition in recent years. Just, as we get fewer and fewer presents and the family gets more and more far-flung, just an opportunity to spend more time together. I think it was a couple of years ago we saw another Safdie Bros film, Uncut Gems. Did not especially like it the first time I saw it, and then I liked it a lot more the second time. This one was like a combination of Uncut Gems and what's the Leo film where he's the con man? I was talking about this last night.
Wolf of Wall Street. How old are we talking?
When he's like very, very young. Catch Me If You Can. There you go.
Oh yeah,
with him and Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
it's like 2.5 hours.
2002 classic. Yeah.
Great performances. Chalamet is great. A lot of fun. A lot of fun in the movies. And
nice.
Yeah, I think it's doing very well at the box office. So I imagine it will probably be packed if you guys try to get tickets. But I had a really great time with the family.
Uncut Gems is not exactly the kind of movie I would want to see on Christmas. It just, boy, does it rattle your nerves. It doesn't leave you feeling good in any way. There are
some scenes that leave you feeling good, but the real ones know what I'm talking about.
No, it's incredibly an uncomfortable watch. Hopefully this one was a little bit more fun. We just sat around the old television, didn't even watch any of those terrible Netflix games that Netflix paid, $50 million a game for?
Yeah.
And there were, of the 6 teams playing in those games, I think 5 had already been eliminated from the playoffs. I think the Broncos, maybe 4. I guess the Lions technically were still alive. But yeah, those were ugly, terrible games. We did rewatch. I showed my parents Baltimore-ons, which I have stumped for publicly on this podcast. And you still haven't seen, Jonas. Several Ravens jokes. It is a Christmas movie, despite the fact that it came out in September. So would highly, highly recommend that film.
Tell the people how they can watch it, Paul.
I think it was like an add-on. It was AMC Plus. I don't know.
Okay. So it's not even pay-per-view?
I think we ended up paying $6 for it because you can technically get it through Amazon. But
Gotcha.
That reminds me, Saturday's game between the Ravens and Packers is going to be on Peacock at 8:00, correct?
But it's also, the NFL has to make local games available to local markets. So if you're out of Baltimore, you don't have Peacock, then you're screwed. But if you're in the Baltimore area and you get WBAL, that's how you can watch it there.
Gotcha. If you are out of the Baltimore area, if you're an away from Maryland Ravens fan, I don't know, and you don't have Peacock, I don't know if you're getting Peacock to watch the Ravens and Packers, especially if Lamar Jackson can't go. We're going to preview that game in just a bit, but Jonas, we we got so much to talk about. We're going to try to keep this episode under an hour, but it feels like that we've had weeks this season where we just have not had a whole lot to talk about because the game has to speak for itself. This is one of those instances where I think season-ending losses spark a lot of conversation, a lot of questions, and Saturday's loss to the Patriots wasn't technically season-ending because the Ravens still have a shot to get in the playoffs if they win out and if the Steelers lose out. But it certainly felt like the start of a long process of evaluating what went wrong this season. And Lamar Jackson's status, obviously, in that game where he gets kneed in the back in the second quarter, leaves, Tyler Huntley takes over, Lamar Jackson's ruled out. We'll start with Lamar Jackson's injury status because it's been a topic of conversation since then. He's dealt with every injury under the sun and under the waist this season, from hamstring to knee to ankle to toe. Now we have the back. And when you asked John Harbaugh about how Lamar Jackson's back is feeling, because it's a contusion, he was pretty adamant that Lamar is in a lot of pain and the injury does not look good, both to the naked eye and on an MRI.
Yeah, I mean, I think John did not do himself any favors by initially calling it a bruise, and a bruise is just the more layman's version of a contusion. Like, there are varying levels of bruises, there are varying levels of contusions, but obviously, I think calling it the more medically dressed up the version of it probably would have bought him a little bit more cover, bought Lamar a little bit more cover, because and even hearing Sunday night that it was a bruise, like, oh, well, Lamar should probably be able to make it back for Saturday night, right? Like, it's just a bruise, but there are levels to this thing, and I asked John on Wednesday, I think, basically like what exactly a contusion is in layman's terms in Lamar's case, and he said these are deep tissue contusions. I'm not a medical guy, but I did see the MRI. It's legitimate and very painful. The muscles lock up around the bruise. You can't really move very well. He's in this process now of loosening all that up. And, when you think about kind of where Lamar was hit, in the lower back, the oblique area, I mean, Paul, just how kind of debilitating an oblique injury can be for a pitcher. I don't think that's Lamar's. It's not like his throwing side. I believe it was the lower left back for him. But still, when you consider just kind of all the biomechanics involved in stepping into a throw and getting your body aligned and everything, it's understandable why something like this could be debilitating and more than just something you kind of rub some dirt on.
Yeah, it absolutely. The fact that Lamar was ruled out midway through that game, that usually is an indicator. If a player is ruled out that early during the game process and he came back to the sidelines and was watching with the gigantic coat on, that's kind of an indicator of how serious the injury is. I believe he got an injection as well during that game. Yeah, so an anti-inflammatory. I mean, he is in a lot of pain. It's funny that John Harbaugh in the past, when discussing injuries, has cited HIPAA. He had no problems in this instance getting into detail about the injury and clearly felt the need to explain just how serious this injury is. I also have a hard time, and the one narrative that I refuse to even listen to or acknowledge that comes from fan bases anytime, and especially it has come from parts of the NFL world when Lamar Jackson has suffered his numerous injuries over the years, is the thinking that Lamar Jackson somehow is not tough enough to tough it out. NFL players are some of the toughest people on the planet. The idea that he just doesn't have the will, just doesn't have the desire to get back out there and play, and that the injury is less than it seems, is just ridiculous. The amount of hits and the amount of brutal hits and potentially career-ending hits that these guys face on a week in and week out basis is absurd. And these guys are incredibly tough. And so that's the one area of discussion that I won't even get into, because to me, that's just not a conversation worth having. Lamar has taken a number of hits over the years. He's played through a lot of pain. He's played through a lot of pain this season. And to me, that's something that's almost not worth discussing.
I will say, if I'm Lamar, if I have one piece of advice for him this weekend, it's that even if you're like 99% sure that you're not going to be able to play, just be there in Green Bay with the team. Like, that was, I think, something that rubbed a lot of Ravens fans the wrong way when he didn't go to Cincinnati while he was dealing with the knee injury in 2021, 2022, did not make the trip, was not with the team. Um, there was, I think, a lot less clarity on what exactly was his injury situation then than there is now. But just don't give the critics and the cynics out there the opportunity to say that you are not there for your team, not there for your teammates. Just, even if there's even if there's a reality in which you can be 5% better for possibly next week, if you're able to stay at home, do rehab that way. I just think this is a game that, like, you have to be there for your guys because of everything involved, because of the optics, because of everything that's swirling around you and your coach. Like, I think that the best thing that you can do right there in a situation like this is just show some solidarity.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's talk about some of the stuff that is swirling around this team and the head coach. Let's go back. Let's start small. Let's go back to last week and the loss to the Patriots, because we spent a lot of time on that post-game podcast, and there's been a lot of discussion in the week since about the fact that Derrick Henry did not receive the ball in any capacity after he scored his second touchdown of the game. The Ravens obviously blow an 11-point fourth quarter lead. We're still scratching our heads over it. John Harbaugh was asked about it on Monday. He explained they have a rotation. Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell are their first down and second down backs. Rasheen Ali is their third down back, so they're pass catching, pass blocking back, while Justice Hill obviously is on IR. They had a plan to bring Derrick Henry in later on in that drive. They just never got to it. And Harbaugh has said he has exercised the right. He has the right to take players in and out, to sub players in and out. And if he had to go back and do it again, he probably should have put Derrick Henry in earlier in that drive. The issue that we both have is that it shouldn't take several first downs on that penultimate drive for the Ravens to realize that Derrick Henry is your best option in those instances, because he had racked up 128 yards on the ground. He was averaging over 7 yards per carry. He gets better in December. He gets better as games go along. The Patriots hadn't stopped him. He should have been in that game. And then when offensive coordinator Todd Monken was asked about it as well, he basically just deferred to John Harbaugh. He said, I think Coach addressed it. I'd rather leave it at that. Coach already addressed it. Jonas, to you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfying are the answers that you got from John Harbaugh and Todd Monken?
I don't know, because this is all just prejudiced by how strongly you feel about it. So, I guess a 5 for Harbaugh, and then an NA for Todd Monken, because he didn't really answer the question or delve too deeply into it. We also, I think we talked about this on Sunday night, how there was the detail from Derrick Henry that he had talked with running backs coach Willie Taggart after the previous drive that the Ravens scored on, and according to him, came to a consensus that it should be Keaton Mitchell to start the next drive. But still, just to go back in hindsight and look at some of the next gen stats data, and I know that is information that the Ravens do not have available to them, because they don't really have any technology available to them on the sidelines or in the coaching booth besides the tablets. Like, Derrick Henry was, I think, finishing that game with 30 yards over expectations. So he was doing far more with the meat on the bone than was Keaton Mitchell, who was minus 20 under expectation based on just the kind of running lanes that he was getting compared to the kind of lanes that Derrick Henry was getting. So even more of a damning indictment of just what the Ravens did in terms of putting your best guys in the positions to succeed. Keaton Mitchell's had great games. He's had games where he's outperformed Derrick Henry. He's gives this team a different kind of weapon that Derrick Henry is not. But I think in mid-December, late December, when you have Derrick Henry, when you have a banged up Patriots defense that does not want to tackle him, it seems pretty clear that you want to get your all-pro running back onto the field. And it was pretty shocking just to see the amount of vitriol for the decision, not just from the Ravens fan base, but the NBC crew just calling out Todd Monken, saying that he's the reason that this Ravens offense is not what it should be, not what it can be. I know, obviously we're going to probably have plenty of conversations if the Ravens do not make the playoffs about what exactly is ahead for these coordinators, considering their up and down years. But to see that level of frustration from analysts who are just paratrooping in, I think it was pretty notable.
How does Keaton Mitchell, I know the Justice Hill injury has a large part of this, but how does Keaton Mitchell go from a healthy scratch for the first several games of the season to getting the ball and a crucial gotta have it, gotta run out the clock drive in when your season is on the line? That's just a crazy turn of events. In terms of Todd Monken's job security as well, because I said after the game that I have a hard time, and this is not based on sourcing, this is not based on what I'm hearing, this is just based on the sense that I've gotten and the way that things have gone. I had a hard time understanding why the Ravens would bring back their entire coaching staff as is, both coordinators and the head coach, and we'll get to John Harbaugh's job security in a bit. But when it comes to Todd Monken, I mean, this is the second time in 3 seasons where Todd Monken has been the offensive coordinator, where the Ravens season has essentially ended in a loss where the Ravens did not run the ball enough. Go back 2 years to the Chiefs loss in the AFC Championship game. The Ravens did not run the ball enough. They ran the ball 11 times, I think 8 design runs in that game. They don't score enough points. They lose to the Chiefs. The Ravens season could have potentially, for all intents and purposes, ended in their loss to the Patriots because they did not run the ball enough. And at least against the Chiefs, you could say they didn't have Derrick Henry. They had Gus Edwards. In this loss, they had Derrick frickin' Henry back there, and they didn't run the ball enough. And it's frustrating to get a non-answer from Todd Monken as well at the podium, just to refer back to what John Harbaugh said. And I thought back also to, your point, Jonas, on that postgame podcast, that this Ravens offense is still just 1 year removed from a historic season where they become the first offense ever to put up X number of passing yards, X number of rushing yards. They were phenomenal. They had what should have been MVP campaign from Lamar Jackson. And so that maybe should grant Todd Monken some goodwill for this season. But I think back to the Texans situation a few years ago when Bobby Slowick was their offensive coordinator. And remember the first year with CJ Stroud was gangbusters. And Bobby Slowick was getting head coaching interviews and everybody thought he was the next hot candidate. And he decided to stay with the Texans. And then 1 year later, he's fired because turns out that was too small a sample size. And once things started to go wrong on the offensive line, once things started to break down, it turns out he was not as good a play caller as they thought he was. And so I don't know if being 1 year removed from a historic offense should necessarily grant Todd Monken any favors. Because I look at that Texans offense now, they're making the playoffs. That Texans offense is right back on track without Bobby Slowick at the helm. So I think you have to have a "what have you done for me lately" kind of approach when it comes to Todd Monken.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think I'm probably one of the few who actually agreed with the Ravens and Todd Monken's decision not to run the ball. Just, with a kind of mind-numbing commitment in that game against the Chiefs. I just went back and looked at the film, looked at the stats. Like, they just were not getting any push whatsoever. Lamar was getting tracked down on option keepers. Obviously, he didn't really do himself a lot of favors with just how small sample size that, for us to pick from. But the Chiefs were beating the Ravens the hell up in that game in the trenches. And I don't know if committing to that through all of that would have made a difference. Like we saw in this game, just from quarter one against the Patriots, the Ravens were the more physical team. They were opening up lanes for running backs. Lamar was making stuff happen. I still think that AFC Championship game, despite how poorly it ended, I don't really have too much of a problem with Todd Monken's process, besides just like not finding, I guess, more creative ways to get guys unlocked in the same way that he was able to against the Texans the week before. But yeah, I mean, this next, I guess, week or so is going to be interesting. Just I think there was a report from On3, the sports network, that Todd Monken was being evaluated for the Michigan job, but now he reports from ESPN that the Wolverines athletic department is targeting the former Utah coach Kyle Whittingham. So the possibility of Todd Monken going back to Michigan or going back to the college ranks, in that case, seems like it's kind of come and gone pretty quickly. I don't think Todd Monken at this point in his career, with the kind of ornery personality that he has, would have a lot of interest in dealing with the constant roster churn and just everything that is attendant with NIL and transfer portal and everything like that. I'm sure he would much rather stay an NFL coordinator even on a losing team than go back and make the $5 to $10 million that he would probably fetch as a pretty hot college coaching candidate. So, um, yeah, these next 2 weeks are going to be big for him. And obviously, if he's having to fight shorthanded because Lamar is not available, then that's even more of a problem, of an obstacle that he's going to have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the job security of the head coach, the man who hired him. John Harbaugh has been under a lot of scrutiny this season from the fan base, from outside perspective. This team has underperformed, and anytime you have a team, despite whatever injuries they may occur, underperforms, there's going to be questions about coaching. John Harbaugh, for I think the first time in a while, was asked about his job security at Monday's press conference and his relationship with owner Steve Bisciotti. What did he have to say, Jonas, and what did you think of his answers?
Yeah, he was surprisingly prepared for it. I thought that this would not be a week, considering the Ravens are still actually alive and in the playoff hunt, that the big picture questions would be held off on. But Bo Smoka of Press Box fired away, and John said, "quote It's a great question. This is sports. That's how it works. Blah blah blah. Your job is to do the best job you can today and to do everything you can to help your players and your coaches. If you're a head coach, be the best they can be every single day. And it's never been about keeping a job. And there's no such thing as your job or my job." So he was, I guess you could say, kind of focused on just preparing for the Packers, wasn't really too concerned about his own feelings about the fan base's rancor for how the season has gone. He has been, if you judge by that response, has been kind of keeping a more level-headed, big picture, pragmatic approach. But if they lose this game, if they lose the game after that, then of course we're going to go from just one or two questions about his future, his relationship with Steve Bisciotti, his desire to be back, to a lot more. So it's gonna be interesting. It was a fun little preview, I guess, of what exactly we have ahead, what John Harbaugh has ahead in terms of being asked these questions. Because at no point in my tenure, I think, aside from maybe 2018, when that Ravens team did not look like it was going to make the playoffs, and Lamar had to come in and save John Harbaugh's job, was there any real kind of amount of pressure? I think at that point, the Sun reported that, like, John's job was on the chopping block if they didn't make the playoffs, and they turned things around and won the AFC North and got to the playoffs. But right now, obviously, you're I think under 10% odds in the New York Times to make the playoffs. And this was a season that started with Super Bowl dreams. So it's going to be a very, very uncomfortable next couple of weeks, assuming that the Ravens do not have this salvage job in them.
Well, it's ironic now because we're going to have to talk about the Sun columnist Mike Preston coming out with one of his latest over the week, talking about the relationship between Lamar Jackson, who once helped save John Harbaugh's job, and his head coach, John Harbaugh. The column, if you haven't read it, it's been picked up by a lot of national sources. Awful Announcing has taken it and run with it. Nick Wright has taken it and run with it. He's obviously a noted Lamar Jackson critic, and I know that name doesn't exactly spark a lot of excitement in Ravens fandom, but the column itself, it doesn't cite any specific sources, but it mentions the fact that Lamar Jackson in this story, according to Mike Preston, has fallen asleep in team meetings before, and that John Harbaugh has, quote, become tired, end quote, of Lamar Jackson. You asked John Harbaugh the other day about his reaction to that piece. What did he have to say, and were you kind of what were your thoughts on his comment?
My thoughts was that it was Christmas Eve, and I felt weird doing it, but considering there were very, very few people there.
And it wasn't a column that you or your outlet wrote.
No, and also, obviously, I've worked with Mike. I like Mike, but it was just you don't really like to ask people about other people's reporting. It's just not really something that is all that fun to do in this day and age. But Harbaugh, I think, was pretty prepared for that. Obviously, I think it had come out the day before, so it wasn't like it was just hitting the bloodstream. But he said, we don't take too much credence in anonymous type sources, so I don't know where that's coming from. I've never seen that ever. He later added of his relationship with Lamar. Our relationship is A plus. I love him. I always have, always will. I know he's fighting like crazy to get back. So anonymous reports or things that get said or written or whatever, I don't need anybody speaking for me. So just ask me and I'll tell you what I think. And obviously that is something that Mike, um, you know, he doesn't really show up at a lot of press conferences. He just reports from the the sidelines in a lot of cases, and he uses quotes and stuff like that. But um, it's just it's kind of a weird thing because I think Mike's written versions of this column in weeks past, in years past, and it was only now that Lamar is hurting, now that it's kind of a danger zone for John Harbaugh, now that the Ravens are almost done for their playoff chances, only now does this thing kind of reach a critical mass to the point that I think Mike Preston's name was even trending on Twitter the other day with this article being the subject of conversation. And obviously Ravens fans have a pretty fraught relationship with Mike. You either love him or you hate him. There's not a lot of wiggle room in between. But it was, it added a surprising amount of fuel to this fire. That's now kind of feeling like a bonfire at this point.
Yeah, and obviously that column had other things in it where Mike Preston essentially said he would look at trades. He would open himself up if he were Eric DeCosta to trading quarterback Lamar Jackson, and that sparked a whole other conversation. And I know it's definitely a piece, and it's definitely a conversation that's being had a lot this week. I think we'll kind of table that conversation because we do have to get to the Packers game. And those are kind of conversations that we can start to have during the offseason. They're conversations worth having, and I'm interested to see where you fall on all of this, Jonas. All right. Shall we talk about the 6 Pro Bowlers on this Ravens roster?
Sure.
Let's talk about the good things.
The most important topic to the least important topic.
Let's go from 28 minutes of John Harbaugh's job security and his relationship with Lamar Jackson to the trip that these guys are going to make to Hawaii. Is it Hawaii, Florida? Where is it going to be held this year?
It's no longer in Hawaii. It's wherever they can hold their stupid games, right?
Have you ever gone to the Pro Bowl?
No.
In any reporting capacity? No? I don't know if it has a whole lot of reporting merit, any value.
Central Florida last year?
There we go. Oh, maybe the Walt Disney World complex is one of the big ones. All right, let's talk about the 6 Ravens Pro Bowlers. Jordan Stout. Let's start with the punter. He is a starter. So is Kyle Hamilton. So is Patrick Ricard. So is Roquan Smith. And then the Ravens have a couple guys who also made the roster. Zay Flowers, Tyler Linderbaum. You look at that list of 6, Jonas. To me, I would say those are, as crazy as it sounds for a team that is under 500, the fact that the Ravens had tied for the most in the league in terms of Pro Bowlers is a little bit ridiculous. But when you look at a case-by-case basis and you look at these individual guys, I think these 6 are definitely deserving of Pro Bowl nods. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, they're all Pro Bowl level players. I think you could, if you're an NFL talking head, you could probably quibble with a couple of Raven selections getting where they were. I don't know if Pat Ricard was the best fullback in the NFL this year, considering he missed the first 6 weeks. I think
PFF has him as the number one fullback in the NFL. PFF has him as number 1.
Yeah, but it's like Joe Alt making the Pro Bowl team after 6 weeks of play. I think you got to account for just the longevity in a case like this. Sure. The fact that he didn't come back until week 8 against the Bears. That is, it's a little bit of a demerit against him. And then Tyler Linderbaum, he's had a good season, not a great season. I think the Dolphins center was probably better than him, but again, he doesn't have the name recognition, the brand value of Tyler Linderbaum, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously, it probably matters for the Dolphins center. Linderbaum's contract isn't affected like it was last year by him making the Pro Bowl, so it's just another arrow in his quiver, another arrow in his agent's quiver to get a deal done or to force his way to free agency and see what people will be willing to pay a guy who is now a perennial Pro Bowl pick. But yeah, I mean, this is about what you would expect from a group of players that have, for the most part, lived up to expectations.
Put some respect on Aaron Brewer's name. Andrew Brewer? Aaron Brewer. That's Brewer. The Dolphin center. I can't even remember his name. Yeah, it's not like there are that many people out there that are keyed on center play around the league. Yeah, I mean, I think that the knock on Linderbaum is also just the knock on the offensive line as a whole. The way that this affects the Ravens going forward, obviously Pro Bowlers are great. It's good to have, but it does have money implications for some of these guys, as you said. The fact that this is Zay Flowers' second consecutive Pro Bowl nod, second consecutive 1,000-yard season, it increased the value of his fifth-year option, not for 2026, but for 2027, because he was a first-round pick, goes from $24.4 million to $28 million. That is a lot of money if the Ravens do end up picking up Zay Flowers' option and paying it. Only 12 wide receivers this year have contracts worth more annually than that, but wide receiver contracts go up year to year. It's kind of like the quarterback market. What this year's highest paid wide receiver will most likely not be next year's highest paid wide receiver. And who knows in a couple of years what $28 million for a wide receiver will be. But the fact that Zay Flowers got a Pro Bowl nod does have financial implications. And also, he's eligible for an extension for the first time this offseason. So what the Ravens do with their number one wide receiver, who's to say? We're going to have a lot of conversations about that. Let's dive into this week's game. Okay, let's start with the injuries. We talked about Lamar Jackson dealing with his back contusion. There's a few other guys on the injured list this week on the injury report. Chidobe Awuzie, coming back from his foot injury, was given no game designation. That's good news. Full participant in Thursday's practice. So looks like he's probably going to play on Saturday night. Kyle Hamilton, who was limping after that game against the Patriots around the locker room, he was given no designation with his ankle injury, so it looks like he's going to play. Jay Higgins IV, the linebacker, is questionable. Keaton Mitchell, no game designation with his calf injury. And then Taven Bryan, defensive tackle, popped up on the injury report on Thursday as limited with a knee injury and is now out. And then perhaps one of the more important ones, Andrew Voorhees, suffered that foot injury in the third quarter against the Patriots, was a full participant on Thursday. No game designation either for Andrew Voorhees. But something we didn't even get to talk about Saturday night was the fact that Andrew Voorhees left that game and Emory Jones Jr. came in to replace him. And John Harbaugh was pretty complimentary of the third-round rookie coming in and replacing Andrew Voorhees. We've seen that happen earlier this season in one game where he got a handful of snaps. That was more a designed rotation between Andrew Voorhees and Emory Jones Jr. This was injury-related. It looks like Andrew Voorhees is going to play on Saturday, so this may be a moot point. But to me, if you're looking at a 9% playoff odds, and if you're looking at this offseason as being a critical one to, again, rehaul the offensive line and overhaul it, I should say, and you've got Andrew Voorhees' spot, which is ripe for the taking, and you have a third-round rookie sitting on the roster, as a Ravens fan, I would like to see more of Emory Jones Jr. And from an evaluation standpoint, I would like to see more from Emory Jones Jr.
Yeah, I wonder if they lose this weekend, and you are talking about Week 18 as just a tryout for 2026, whether you would get Emory Jones snaps at left guard where he's more comfortable based on where he's practiced this year, or if you would just try to throw him at right guard, because Andrew Voorhees is under contract for next year, and even though he has not played well this year, conceivably, you could say we are just trying out our guard rotation for 2026 with Voorhees at left guard, Emory Jones at right guard. But, you don't want to leave whoever is quarterback any more vulnerable than he has to be. And if Emory Jones Jr. is just not a viable right guard candidate, even though he played right tackle in college, then I guess we get a little bit more into the vagaries of what exactly is the right thing to do in this situation, because Daniel Faalele, I think we can probably pretty safely say, is probably not coming back to Baltimore in 2026. He's, of course, a pending free agent after this year. So would you be replacing Voorhees with Emory Jones Jr. if you're talking about just let's play the young guys? And then you're keeping Faalele at right guard. That's interesting. Voorhees did not have a good game at all against the Patriots, at least in pass protection. He got a wonderful PFF grade of 7.7, allowing 4 pressures in just 16 pass blocking opportunities. So, even though, as we've said, Farley Lake is the kind of emblem, the avatar of this past group struggles, just with how comical some of his failures are. You could still, I think, make the pretty reasonable argument that Voorhees has been the weak link of that group up front, and maybe that behooves the Ravens to give Emory Jones just the full start next week, if this weekend does not go their way. Um, you know, Certainly you could have a good bit of cover for just benching Voorhees if this foot injury is not something that he's anywhere close to being 100% with. Just say we're going to give Emory Jones the opportunity to get some film on tape and tell Voorhees that we just want to get you healthy as soon as possible. But these are just very, very small niggling issues compared to what's at stake with the quarterback situation.
Yeah, it's just frustrating also to hear John Harbaugh say, well, he looked good, and the only way he can get better is if he gets reps and if he gets playing time. Well, then he played him 16 snaps a few weeks ago and then stopped that rotation and stopped giving him playing time. So if the only way he's going to get better is by playing him, then play him at a certain point. All right, let's preview this game between the Ravens at 7-8 and the Packers at 9-5-1 on Saturday. The Packers opened as 2.5-point favorites. That line has now moved to 4.5 points, I think likely because of the injury designation for Lamar Jackson as doubtful for this game. The Packers, though, themselves have some questions about who's going to start at quarterback. They had Jordan Love. He suffered his concussion a week ago in their devastating loss to the Bears. Then they have Malik Willis, who stepped up and played pretty well in Jordan Love's stead, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury. What is the status of those two quarterbacks, of Jordan Love and Malik Willis, coming into this game Saturday, Jonas?
Yeah, it seems pretty up in the air. I couldn't verify this anywhere else, but Rich Hribar, Hribar, who does a great fantasy football / game preview stuff that I use for my own game previews, wrote that we have not seen a quarterback clear the concussion protocol in just 1 week this season, and Jordan Love was limited in Thursday's practice. It's unclear if he was limited because of his non-throwing shoulder injury or because it was the concussion. If he's still limited because of the concussion, then I think that's a pretty clear sign that he won't be playing on Saturday. I believe the expectation is normally you don't play with in the concussion protocol unless you get one full participation game, one full participation day of practice under you. So to me, that would indicate that Malik Willis is going to be the guy. And he told reporters, Malik Willis did on Tuesday, that he should be ready to go. He missed practice on Wednesday with an illness. Obviously, that right shoulder injury is something to be wary of. And I guess we could be talking about a possibility of Clayton Tune, the third stringer, potentially being needed to come on in relief if Willis aggravates that injury, or if the Ravens knock him into the ground a couple times, or if something else happens to Malik Willis that forces him off the field. But he's been a extremely capable backup for them. I think he could be a potential, low price starting acquisition for some team this offseason, just based on how he's played in Green Bay for Matt LaFleur. But still, the drop off from Jordan Love, who's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL, despite kind of a rotating mix of wide receivers, healthy and not healthy, and an offensive line that's been really banged up for most of the year, is pretty significant. And the Ravens would definitely much rather prefer to see Malik Willis in there, even with his running ability, as opposed to Jordan Love.
Jonas, this is my favorite topic for conversation. It's backup quarterback talk. I love talking backup quarterbacks, and I absolutely could see Malik Willis as a guy that a team finds as their bridge quarterback next offseason, because he has slowly developed as the backup in Green Bay. 9 for 11 for 121 yards and a touchdown, plus 10 rushing attempts for 44 yards when he came in for Jordan Love in that loss to the Bears. The Ravens have faced him before, by the way. When you made the trip across the pond to cover the Ravens game against the Titans, he came in relief of Ryan Tannehill in 2023. How well do you remember that game, Jonas?
Not well at all. I remember the Ravens getting a lot of sacks, and I think there was I remember the Derrick Henry run. I remember the Titans lines, one particular offensive lineman, I think with a French surname, just getting completely roasted over and over again. I remember Tottenham Stadium being very, very cool. I remember the pregame pageantry, but yeah, that was not an especially memorable game.
Didn't Derrick Henry either stiff arm or juke Marcus Williams on the way to the end zone in that touchdown run? I believe it was not a good
It's
look.
possible. It was a wildcat run, and
That's
I
right.
think Kyle Hamilton got very, very fooled on that one, which led to a terrible, terrible PFF grade for him. The weird things I remember, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot else besides just the Ravens really racking up pass rush stats in that one.
Yeah. Well, the Packers offense would change dramatically if Malik Willis was in there, despite the fact that he is a serviceable backup, in large part because they would probably shift heavily towards the run. And this Ravens defense is excellent, still pretty good against the run, despite their issues in pass coverage. I mean, it wasn't their issues in the run game that spurred their loss to the Patriots. It was their issues in the secondary and in pass coverage. And if Malik Willis is the quarterback, they're going to have a lot of designed runs. They went to 60% run plays after Malik Willis came into that game against the Bears. So they're going to rely heavily on read option. They're going to run the ball a lot. And yes, the Packers have a good run game, but still, this offense does change dramatically if you take Jordan Love out of the equation.
Yeah, and I don't think the Packers run game this year is as good or as competent as it was last year. I mean, obviously Josh Jacobs has been dealing with his own injuries this year. I don't think he doesn't have a game designation for this week, so he's been he's healthy enough to play, healthy enough to practice in full. But the Packers last year when Malik Willis was at the reins for Jordan Love, who was dealing with that, I think the early season foot injury, they ran the ball 2/3 of the time. And granted, it was like, I think they beat up against the Colts and the Titans, so not exactly stellar competition. But in one of those games, they ran for over 250 yards, and the other one they ran for almost 200 yards. Matt LaFleur is a great, great play designer. He's a great, great schemer, and I don't know if the Ravens would be especially vulnerable to a kind of true dual threat like Malik Willis. Obviously Drake May is playing mobile. He ran for 20 miles per hour on that block for the week before the Patriots played the Ravens, but he doesn't really put himself on the line as a design run game quarterback like Malik Willis would be asked to be. But I don't know. I think if you're talking about this is a Packers offense that Malik Willis in there would be a pretty safe bet to run the ball on first down and then on second down. I think the Ravens would love to have the opportunity to just tee off on Malik Willis on third and long, considering some of the injuries up front, considering just the fact that even though Malik Willis has improved his accuracy by leaps and bounds, I think you could probably attribute a lot of that just to him finding himself in advantageous spots off play action, off RPOs, whatever Matt LaFleur has done to help him be a guy who's somehow completing over 85% of his passes this year and over 74% last year.
The one thing the Ravens can't do, though, is play the way that they have played in primetime this year on defense. I mean, usually the Ravens under Lamar Jackson, they've saved their best games for games in primetime, especially on offense, but also on defense. That has not been the case this year at all. Week 1 allowed 41 points to the Buffalo Bills in primetime. Week 3 allowed 38 points to the Detroit Lions in primetime. Week 9 actually played well against the Dolphins in primetime. And then on Sunday, they reverted back to themselves, allowed 28 points and 453 yards and a career high in passing yards to Drake May. So just save some of your better play for the brighter light games. All right, on the other side of the football, Jonas, how is this Packers defense? How can this Packers defense that is without Micah Parsons, who tore his ACL in week 15, how can they be attacked, whether it is Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley under center?
If we think it's going to be a run-heavy game, it could be just the Ravens having to bank on long, protracted drives. This is a bend but don't break Packers defense. Packers run defense specifically. The Ravens have a league high 20 runs of 20 plus yards. Green Bay has allowed a run of 20 plus yards on less than 1% of design runs, which is the second best rate in the league. And the big question in all this is that uh, just what does this Ravens defense, excuse me, what does this Ravens offense do against a Micah Parsons-less Packers defense? Because if you look at just the overall sack stats for this Packers team, for the NFL at large, the 49ers have the worst sack rate in the league at 3%. So they're basically taking down the quarterback one of every 33 dropbacks. The Packers are 2.7% when Micah Parsons is off the field this season. So it's a dramatically different group. He's a clear force multiplier for that defense. They did not hold up that well against the Bears last weekend. 22 points, 400 yards. They're also missing Devontae Wyatt, an interior pass rusher who had 4 sacks this year. They have just now one pass rusher, among the edge guys, among the interior pass rushers, who ranks in the top 70 in PFF's win rate. And that's a backup defensive end, Luke Van Ness, who has all of 1.5 sacks this year. So I think the Ravens, should feel pretty good about their ability to either get Tyler Huntley time and space back there, or just be able to set themselves up for manageable second and mediums, manageable third and shorts against this Packers defense. We don't know if Evan Williams, who's a key part of their run defense as a safety, is going to be available for this one. I believe he is questionable after being limited in practice all week by a knee injury. So if he's gone, that's another mark in the Ravens' favor. But it's going to be interesting because obviously the more film that teams get on Tyler Huntley and this Ravens offense without Lamar Jackson, I think the smarter coaches get, the smarter players get, and I just don't know if we've kind of reached that tipping point where Tyler Huntley has been figured out, if you want to kind of put it in terms like that.
It's funny because you've banged this drum before, Jonas, but people tend to think that Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley, because they're both mobile quarterbacks, play a very similar style of game, and they don't. I mean, sure, they play a closer style of game than Cooper Rush and Lamar Jackson, and that's a large reason why the offense just simply operates better when Tyler Huntley is under center as opposed to Cooper Rush. But Lamar Jackson holds on to the football way longer than most quarterbacks in the NFL because he is always dancing and doing something around in the backfield. Tyler Huntley gets rid of the ball quickly. Never more was it more apparent than in Saturday's loss to the Patriots when that penultimate drive. Remember, the Ravens have the ball in their own territory. They're facing 3rd and long, and Tyler Huntley drops back, and the second he faces pressure, darts the ball to Mark Andrews, well short of the sticks. That sets up the Ravens with, 4th and 4, 4th and 3. And it was like if he had just taken an extra second to maneuver the pocket, to find somebody that was beyond the sticks in that instance, perhaps he could have found somebody that could have helped them convert that first down and move the sticks. But he just so quickly got the ball out. But it's something you've pointed out a lot, Jonas, is that they don't really play the same style of quarterback despite the fact that they are both mobile.
No, I mean, next gen stats data, Huntley 2.61 seconds average time to throw. That would be the quickest in the NFL, which is kind of surprising considering usually the front runner is around 2.5 seconds. And he's in the bottom 6 in air yards per attempt, 7.1. That's 2 less air yards per attempt than Lamar. And I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but you're talking about bottom 6 in average air yards for Tyler Huntley compared to the 4th most for Lamar. And I think that's reflected in just the number of deep downfield shots, the number of seam balls that Lamar will throw versus Tyler Huntley, who, was never really. We saw him make some nice throws down the middle in that win against the Bears, but typically, when you think of the typical Tyler Huntley completion, it is those kind of outside the numbers throws on 3rd and short. DeAndre Hopkins obviously got fed more than he has all season on Sunday night against the Patriots. We saw, Zay Flowers be an option on 3rd and short, and the Ravens did a good job with Tyler Huntley in there in converting those 3rd downs, like better than the Patriots, despite how well the Patriots moved the ball for that night. So the Ravens just have to put Tyler Huntley in a position where hopefully he feels confident, not getting too eager when he sees that flash of color, because I think if this Ravens offensive line, especially out wide, like performs like it has been, then Tyler Huntley should have the opportunity to be able to get to his third read and his fourth read. I just don't think that this is a Packers pass rush without Micah Parsons that is really anything to fear about. Like there was another next gen stats nugget about how like I think the average time to pressure without Micah Parsons is a full like 0.2 seconds slower. So I know again that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but all these little differences, all these little distinctions really do add up, and it's just not. It's a Packers defense without any teeth. When you talk about no Devontae Wyatt, no Micah Parsons, perhaps no Evan Williams as that starting strong safety in there. So maybe the Ravens won't have a chance. I think the like the biggest variable in all this is like, does this Lambeau Field home advantage really convey without Micah Parsons? Like the Green Bay stats, Paul, are just ridiculous when they're playing at home compared to when they're playing on the road. But this is going to be their first game without Micah Parsons, and I just don't know how much of a role that he had in that defensive dominance at home.
Yeah. Are you saying that DeAndre Hopkins is going to get more than his whopping 4 catches on 5 targets, a season high against the Patriots? It's amazing what can happen if you involve DeAndre Hopkins in the offense.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, we're going to give you our score predictions on the other side of another quick break.
For the 5th year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. All right, Jonas, I'll start with my score prediction. I have the Ravens losing this one. I know I predicted them to win last week. You were on the right side of history last week. I've got the Ravens falling by a touchdown in this game, 24-17. It feels like the wind was completely taken out of this team's sails against the Patriots, and I have a very hard time believing that they can pick themselves up off the mat after the way that things went last week against the Patriots.
I'm actually surprisingly optimistic, considering
Really?
everything that's going around with Harbaugh and Lamar, and Derrick Henry and Todd Monken. I think without Jordan Love, and again, this is a prediction predicated on Jordan Love not being available, I do think the Ravens would come out of this game with a win. I think it'll be something very, very short, or very, very narrow, rather. I think I'm going with Ravens 17, Packers 16. I think not just the Jordan Love injury is significant, but they could be without Christian Watson. He missed practice Thursday with an illness that's seemingly kind of ripping through that Packers roster. He's been their deep threat since he came back from that ACL surgery last year. They're obviously missing Tucker Kraft, who tore his ACL and screwed my fantasy team about a month ago. Romeo Dobbs is their leading guy. Beyond that, it's Matthew Golden, only 341 yards. They're starting right tackle, who's Zach Tom, who's probably at this point their best starting offensive lineman, might not play. He didn't practice all week because of knee and back injuries. Their starting center, Sean Ryan, also missed practice Thursday with an illness and is also questionable as well. So Green Bay could possibly be on its 3rd starting center of the year because Elton Jenkins, who was their week 1 guy, is now on injured reserve. So that is a lot to lay at the feet of a quarterback who, if it is Malik Willis, probably isn't fully healthy with the shoulder injury and everything. So I just think that probably the most reliable unit in this game, even if it is Tyler Huntley in there, would probably be the Ravens run game. I just think they're in a good place right now. I think we've seen him be a capable steward as a passer, even though he doesn't have anywhere close to the ceiling that Lamar does. And I just think like this Ravens team, for whatever weird reasons you want to attribute to it, like has played a lot better on the road than at home. And maybe that comes to a screeching skid this weekend in Green Bay in primetime, where the Ravens obviously have struggled. But I don't know. I just think that based off the kind of trend lines of this Packers defense without Micah Parsons and this Packers offense, potentially without Jordan Love, I do think the Ravens have a real shot at this one.
And if you're going by vibes, I will say, as awful as the vibes are in Baltimore, they're not great in Green Bay either. I mean, they just lost Micah Parsons. They just lost, probably temporarily, but Jordan Love. The fan base is a little bit sick, I think, of Matt LaFleur taking this team consistently to the 7 seed and then never getting beyond that.
I mean, just for a window into the mind of what like 2/3 or 3/4 of NFL fan bases feel, I think us looking from afar at Matt LaFleur's tenure in Green Bay, be like, wow, the Ravens would love to have a coach like that if this is it for John Harbaugh. And then you look at the tweets from the Packers, main team account, and there is a whole lot of hate and animosity toward LaFleur. So just like we kind of said, every family is unhappy in its own ways, and a lot of it is because teams just get sick of seeing the same guy fall short over and over again, even if that guy is unquestionably, one of the best offensive play callers in the NFL.
Earlier this season, The Athletic's Matt Schneidman wrote that he thought Matt LaFleur is coaching for his job the rest of the way. So things are not great there either. But I didn't think things were great in Pittsburgh before the Ravens played the Steelers in Week 14. And that was part of the reason I picked the Ravens to beat the Steelers. And, well, the turns out the Steelers had better vibes and just played a better game. So I'm still sticking with my prediction here.
Paul, it's perfect that you mentioned good vibes, because I had a real moment of clarity last night. Just like thinking about the phrase good vibes, because vibes, I assume, is just like a abbreviation for vibrations, and vibrations are sound. So what you're saying with good vibes is like, yeah, sounds good.
Wow. Had you ingested anything before you made this?
No,
it was
I was maybe Marty Supreme did have certain drug-like qualities, but I was just thinking, I like words. I like etymology. Like,
you do. That's why.
More than vibrations, and if that's the case, then what does good vibes at its core meaning actually imply about where we are?
If Good Vibrations, the Beach Boys song, was written today, would it be Good Vibes?
For sure.
Na, 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 good vibes. It doesn't have the same ring to it. All right, we will have complete coverage for you. Oh, by the way, we didn't even do our word of the day, because you just have, despite the fact that you love words, as you've just said, Jonas, you've taken every opportunity to not do a word of the day. Should it be contusion?
Yeah.
So we can make it contusion. All right. I am carrying the banner here, and I'm the only one doing it. Speaking of the banner, subscribe $1 for 6 months.
Shout out to the banner.
Jonas has great coverage for you. So does Gianna Hahn. They will be in Green Bay. Childs Walker will have his 5 things. Kyle Goon has some excellent columns coming your way. Wrote one earlier this week about the Ravens' lack of use of Derrick Henry. And we will have a podcast for you in the wee hours of Sunday morning after that Ravens-Packers game. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Jonas Shaffer, I'm Paul Mancano. We'll catch you next time.